Get your man the flute to play song, the fuck.
There you go, it's everyone. Gajima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 83 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. Mwah. How's all doing, my lovely wee rats? Listen, February's almost here. Thank fuck, huh? January's almost gone. It's out. It's done. Its reign of terror is over. Long live the king. The king is dead. Now, we're going to have a couple of solo episodes for a wee while longer. We've already had a few, so if you're new to the Inline G podcast, it's a mixture of solo episodes where it's just me, myself, and moi, and then guest episodes with famous flute players, non-famous flute players, people I like to interview, or sometimes just my mates, my friends that I think are going to be experts on topics that you as a flute player potentially may or may not be interested in. But we've got guests coming on soon. We've also got a couple of specials coming up. So, for example, we have our Valentine's Day special. We've got our Cologne Carnival special 2 weeks after that for my adopted city of Cologne. And we've, of course, got our St. Patrick's Day special, which I haven't even worked out yet, but it's going to be fucking great. So until then, it's probably going to be quite a few solo episodes, and we're going to get to know each other just a little bit better. We're going to take each other out for a walk. We're going to ask each other how many siblings we've got and what we do for a living. You can tell I'm single, huh? But, lads, this week's episode, it was actually born out of a request. And that request sent me spiralling down a Wikipedia hole that, honestly, I'm barely out of yet. Because my close personal friend, Julien Boudimont, you might know him from things such as being one of the best flute players in the world. Julien was in Canada recently, and he was giving some masterclasses over there, inspiring the uninspired. And the Inline G Canadian Battalion were over there, and they told me all about it. They actually got a cute picture with him as well. And one of them sent me a message saying, "What I want you to explore, Gareth, is why the flute community is so stuck on rankings as a measure and scale speeds and all the other rubbish and not musicality and creativity." That's what Julien was going on about in the masterclass. Say something, have an opinion, pay attention to the line, and blow the flute like a flute, and stop trying to make it sound like a French horn. And then she says, I'm paraphrasing, sorry, Julien. Now, okay, I'm going to cover all the topics apart from that one about the flute and the French horn, because that's a you problem. That's a problem for all of you over on the other side of the Atlantic. I can't sort you out in that one, lads, alright? That's a you problem. Over here in Europe, we know how to play. Alright, we have a thing called subtlety over here, which, okay, maybe not in Canada. I don't know enough about Canada to really share an opinion on it, but I just know over on the other side of the water there, you guys have an issue with this. That's a you problem. So I'm not going to weigh in on that. I would never weigh in on North American affairs in this podcast. But the other things I'm going to cover it all today. I've got all the topics down. I've done the research. Don't know if I've been able to pull them together yet. So you and me, dear listener, we're on this ride together. Let's see if the two of us can make sense of it all. So let's get down to the bare bones of this, the bare bollocks of this. Why do we even bother listening to music? Why do we do it? Because we all do it. Well, most of us anyway. Actually, I'll tell you, around about 98% of the world's population derive pleasure from listening to music. Now, that's also why, oh my god, when I go onto Bumble or Tinder and I say, I like music in a dating profile, it's like, oh my god, it's so fucking boring. You and literally almost every other person in the world love. I swear to God, there's a factory somewhere up in Dusseldorf near here where they're making these women. I swear, they're just churning them out. These women that they like coffee, and they like Harry Potter, and they like Taylor Swift, and they like going out, but they also like sitting in. Do you know what the worst thing about them is? I want one of them. God damn it. Why can't I have one? Anyway, dear listener, there's roughly 2% of the population who do not derive any pleasure whatsoever from listening to music. And this is called music anhedonia. Not to be confused with music agnosia. Anhedonia means you can understand music. So you're capable of understanding it. You just get zero emotional response to it. Music agnosia is where you just don't get music. The patterns aren't recognized. It just doesn't click. You don't comprehend it. You don't understand it. In either case, poor bastards. But therefore, music is a universal, multicultural, multi-generational thing that has spanned at least 40,000 years. The oldest instrument ever found was a flute 40,000 years ago. And we still haven't learned how to fucking play the thing. But that's actually one of the ways we measure if a civilization is civilized or not, is if they had musical instruments. And that means humans have been at this for 40,000 years. They've been joining tunes for 40,000 years. And there is a couple of reasons why we're so mad for it. So the first one, and probably the most obvious one, music regulates your emotions. Okay, so it's great for our emotions. It does everything for us. It can regulate them, first of all. So there's a study that shows that listening to heavy metal, for example, is a great way to regulate anger. Now, you also look at sad music. Probably the most famous example when we think of emotions attached to music. Sad music generally has one of three responses. So it has genuine sadness, which is negative valence, which means bad effects, essentially. We have comforting and uplifting sorrow, which is a positive valence or good effects, and sweet sorrow, which is also a positive valence. I learned the word valence last week, and I'm saying it to you guys to look smart, because I am. But that's sad music can give us three effects, and two of them are positive. Sometimes you get genuine sadness from it. And music has that two-way street with emotions. So it can dictate our emotions after listening to it, or your mood or your environment or the context you're in can dictate what music you listen to. So it goes both ways. But basically, the overall consensus is that music it makes us feel better emotionally. Like recently, I've been listening a lot of 80s power ballads about love. And I don't know if I'm feeling better, lads, but it's doing something, I tell you that. Now, next up is music has great benefits for creativity. Not just creating it either, but all kinds of things. We all know, for example, certain types of music help us relax. I'm sure a lot of you guys have some kind of music or noise that you listen to go to sleep or to relax or to put on the background. You might be one of those people that puts classical music on in the background. I don't get that at all. I will never understand that unless it's an American flute player. Those guys send me straight to sleep, straight to the land of Nod when I listen to Julius Baker. But generally, classical music, I don't know how you do it, because I had a friend recently said they casually listen to Beethoven 9 in the morning. I was like, if I listen to Beethoven 9 on a Sunday morning, that's my day wrote off. I am an emotional wreck for the rest of the day. Can't do it. But here, whatever floats your boat. Not here to judge. We listen and we don't judge. But any music can help creativity. So, you've all heard a phrase. I'm sure someone at some point has said to you something like, let it sink in. Or sleep on it, that kind of thing. Let it all simmer away. Let your emotions simmer away, and it'll clarify on its own. Well, in psychology, that phenomena is known as incubation, and music can be of great help when you're incubating something. So, music activates various regions of the brain, which in turn trigger linked or spread out brain regions. So it can trigger different parts of your brain or more spread out ones, which then link up to memories. So they can go to different parts. So music can trigger a part of your brain, which is linked to another part of your brain, which is linked to another part, which then suddenly becomes a memory. Bang. Now you're unlocking different parts of your brain to solve your problem or to work out things, and that memory can serve a purpose in solving the problem you have now. So, give that a lash the next time you're stuck on something. Next time you're thinking something through, chill out, stick on some Led Zeppelin. And just zone out. Stop trying to fix the problem. Stick on some Led Zeppelin and smoke some things you probably shouldn't be smoking. It can help a lot, alright? And music is also great for exercise. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this. We go to the gym with music. I mean, I've stopped runs before. I've stopped running because the songs came on I don't like. I'll be running down the street and going, whoa, not today. Not the Cranberries today. Looking through my fucking iPod. My iPod, what year is it, Gareth? My iPhone? But it's great for everyone. Like, you go to a gym these days, and this is universal, multicultural, multi-generational, everything. Everyone has headphones on. Nobody's insane enough to listen to the music in the gym. But that's why we do it. Music can really motivate us and give us a direct emotional activation that will help with the gym. Either pumps you up, or it calms you down, or it just distracts you. But everyone uses it for exercise. Another great benefit of music. Now, music can shield emotional pain, as we talked about earlier, but it can also shield physical pain. Genuinely. And this is called, first of all, there's emotional shielding. And then there is cognitive effects, which go to pain as well. So, there's also... I forgot about the study I read for that. Shit. It's too late to stop this podcast now. We're on the train and we're running with it, lads. I read a great example of how... Oh, yeah. No, there is loads of examples of this. Like, if you ever get kids to go for injections or to go for, like, different things they have to do, you put on music in their ears, and it's great. It's a way to distract them and soothe them, and it genuinely brings away from physical pain. It's a great way to do it. When kids are stressed, you put it on. We should do it as adults more often, to be totally honest. If I was going for an injection, I would love to put the headphones on, but they don't let me. Well, they do let me. Nobody's stopping me, but... Yeah. Other benefits of music. There are also social facilitations, or You might know it better as musicking. Now, this is a really cool phenomenon, right? Or not a phenomenon, but it's a thing. It's a shared experience of listening to music. So this is very specific. It's not creating music together or playing music together, but listening to music together. And between people, that can foster a really special connection. Now, the most obvious example of the kind of connection you can get from music is a romantic connection. So, the right song comes on, and before you know it, you're getting your parking validated. You're getting your ticket stamped. You know what I mean? The right song can do that. Like, for example, there's no way two people of each other's desired sex can sit alone in a room and hear How Deep Is Your Love come on by the Bee Gees and not get a tingle in your downstairs. Alright? You're only human, lads. It has an effect on every person. Every man, woman and child and in between. Not child. I shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have said that. It's a mispronunciation. Child means something else in Irish. But legitimate music and dance have fostered intimate human relationships since pretty much the dawn of civilization. Humans connect via music. Humans have always connected via music. And there's a phrase we say, the music moved us. Obviously we mean emotionally, but that can often be quite literal. Music affects our environment. It affects how we react and interact and our relationship to our environment and our context. The right music can improve or ruin either the environment you're in or the conversation you're having. If you're out having a pint with a couple of mates and you're 4 pints in, that lovely little 4-pint phase, and everyone's jolly and merry, and suddenly someone plays fucking Coldplay, the night's over. It's ruined. The crack's over. On the other hand, you stick on Angels by Robbie Williams, you're just getting started. Alright, it's all uphill from here. You're going to have the best night of your life. Also, I only found out recently, Americans, you don't know who Robbie Williams is. You don't even have Robbie Williams in America. That broke my heart to find that out. I haven't seen the movie yet. Apparently it's fine. Apparently it's absolutely grand. It's just fine. The one where he's a monkey. But I can't believe Americans don't have Robbie Williams. You're missing out. Even in Germany, every night out here, every nightclub you go to, every karaoke night, last song, Angels. I heard someone say it's our Piano Man. It's not. We have Piano Man here too. We're not in the third world here. But Angels by Robbie Williams, man, I can't believe Americans don't have that. And it's my job as the official Irish delegate to America to tell you guys, go listen to Angels by Robbie Williams. So, that's what music can do. It affects everything on you. Now, also, it's great for nostalgia. Music, we all know this. How many memories come back when you hear a certain piece or a certain song, and it's gorgeous. It just comes straight in. There's a song I've been re-listening to recently called Sweet Dreams TN, or Sweet Dreams Tennessee, which is by The Last Shadow Puppets, Alex Turner's side project from the Arctic Monkeys. And every time it's a beautiful song. It's a proper over-the-top cheesy love song. Every time I hear that song, I instantly think back to the person I used to be in love with. Person I might still be in love with. The person I'm still in love with for 10 years now. But head over heels in love with. And that song just reminds me. Sometimes I forget the person exists. And then suddenly, bang, it comes on. And then that's my day ruined. But I'm sure you guys, tell me if you have a song like that. Do you have a song that just really brings back an old flame? It's amazing that. I love that. Beethoven 9, for example, brings me straight back to being 18 years old and going to Magaluf, which is it's a party town in one of the Spanish islands where a lot of British people go when they're 18 as their first boys' holiday away from their parents. It's called Shagaloof as well. And we went there, and I hate the pool. If I haven't mentioned this already, I hate the beach, I hate the pool because I'm very hairy. Hairy from the eyebrows down. From here down, loads of hair. From the eyebrows up, fuck all. And I hate going into the pool because I get out like a fucking wet dog and I'm shaking myself and all. So I don't go to the pool. And when we were in Magaluf with all my mates, there was 10 of us, I didn't go to the pool during the day to shake off the hangover. So I went out to the balcony and I bought 35 cheap as fuck menthol Marlboro cigarettes. It cost about €2. And I smoked my way through all of them listening to Beethoven's Ninth on the speakers. And hearing Beethoven's Ninth sends me straight back there, as does Desperado beer. The minute I sip Desperado beer, I'm 18 again. It's great, but it's amazing how music can just send you straight back to that state of mind, and everything's so clear, and you can remember everything, you can get this other sense. It's incredible how you just link all that. And music can bring you back to all periods of your life, right back to your younger days or great events. Another great example, which, again, sometimes I'm on TikTok and I realise I've never had a unique experience in my life, but a universal experience apparently for a lot of children was your parents are downstairs partying, you're in the other room with your cousins, Eventually it gets like 1 o'clock and you're going, right, I'm going to bed. You go upstairs. The parents are listening to music downstairs. You can hear all the noise. You can't get to sleep. Then the music stops and you're like, happy days. I can get to sleep. And you put your head in the pillow and you start to doze off. And then all you hear downstairs is red, red wine. And man, I thought I was the only person who went through that. I saw a TikTok about that and I was like, oh my God, my parents' generation, whatever happened at the end of the night, they would stop the music and then 10 minutes later they go, stick on UB40 there. Go on, stick on a bit of UB40. What else does music do? Music gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of identity. It's so important. It gives us a way to express our identity and our belonging to others and our values as well to others. It makes us feel like we belong to a group, which honestly these days seems like a harder and harder thing to do. The world is incredibly individualized. We glorify the individual, so it's great to have that still. For example, at the moment, I cannot stop listening to Kneecap's new album. I'm all over it. But I think it's not just the music I like, because I actually don't really like hip-hop that much. It's just these guys. I don't speak Irish, so I don't really know what they're saying. But it solidifies my sense of rebelliousness and an attitude in myself that is kind of unique to Belfast. And it's my wee way of keeping in touch with home. You know, they're the first band to really capture that essence of what Belfast really is, or my Belfast, modern Belfast. Which is, by the way, if you haven't seen the film, you haven't seen the Kneecap film, watch the fucking film and tell me what you thought. But yeah, it can do that to us. Like there's, as I said, we're very individualized these days. There's a real glorification of the introvert these days. You know, the real glorification of like, oh, you know, you're 30 when you go home and you have a cup of tea on a Saturday night and you're in bed by 10. You're like, I'm fucking 32, all right? And I haven't been sober in years. Get out, live a life, see the world. Don't give me this shit, all right? TikTok's lying to you. See if you're FOMO, you should have FOMO. See if you're 30 years old. If you're under 30 and you're sitting in on a Saturday night, you're a disgrace. Get out. Get off your fucking arse. Go smooch someone you shouldn't smooch. Go do something. Go live. You can sleep when you're dead. Anyway, music also, aesthetic purposes, lads. Just pure aesthetic purposes. You can just listen to something sometimes, or a person making music and just go, that's class. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Like every time I see, one of my favourite ones to do with that is Jack White from the White Stripes. He did a gig, or formerly of the White Stripes, during Corona. He did SNL. And oh my God. He did Ball and Biscuit and changed the lyrics to suit the Corona pandemic. And it's insane musicianship. And it's only a trio because they couldn't bring more because of the rules about COVID and all that. And I watch it and I'm like a fucking Neanderthal. I'm just like clapping my hands and making noise, going, just because the way he plays the guitar, man, it rocks. It's fucking class. But, okay, that's also why the context and the environment of where you hear music are so important. It's why a piece in a concert hall will sound totally different to what it does on vinyl or on Spotify. Now, I will say, appreciating music purely for its aesthetic reasons, you have to be careful of it sometimes. That's the one that can lead to being a dickhead. Okay, that's the one that can lead to arrogant dickhead views, which we'll get to later, okay? And I was delighted to be able to tie this link together. Now, before I get to that, I have to tell you about this, lads. When I was doing my weekly Inline G rabbit hole, which honestly, one night, 2 hours gone to this podcast episode. 2 hours. Honestly, it was that bad, I genuinely forgot to reply to the wee girl I'm texting. That's how bad this was, lads. It was awful. Because I came across something fucking fascinating. Now, maybe you guys have seen this girl on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, Hannah Fry. So she's like a red-headed English academic. Does like a lot of like explaining phenomena and like wee small videos explaining phenomena and different ideas and things like that. She does a lot of stuff for the BBC as well. Very popular on TikTok. Went like semi-viral this year. She did one recently on a thing called the kiki-bouba effect. And sure as God, 2 weeks later, I'm researching it myself because it appears in music. Jeez, that's lovely. By the way, any Americans, have you tried this yet? Paulaner Spezi. Okay, it's very Deutsch, very, very German. But they've launched in the States now. They haven't called it Spezi. It's got the same label, but I think it's called Sunset. Oh my, it's the best drink in the world. It's like half cola, half Fanta orange. But it's not cola and Fanta orange. It's like, yeah, well, it's not Coca-Cola and it's not Fanta orange. It's like orange lemonade, but good orange. If anyone in America can get that and try it, please do. I think it's only launched in California. But please, if you get a bottle of that, you find it in the shops, get it and tell me what you think, because I'm so curious what it's like over there. Anyway, where were we? Kiki-bouba. Okay. So, kiki-bouba is an effect. It's a phenomenon. Sorry, it's something we see now. The one you'll know it as if this is running I'm sort of jogging your memory, if you will, is you'll see two pictures. You'll see one of like a jaggedy shape, like just loads of edges on, like a circle with loads of edges and hard points on it, and then you see like a blobby, smooth shape beside it. And the experiment is that you're asked to call, if you have the names Kiki and Bouba, which one is Kiki and which one is Bouba. And something like 98% of people say that Shaggedy Jarp, he used to play for Chelsea. The jaggedy sharp one would be Kiki, and the soft, blobby, gentle one would be Bouba. Okay? Now, it's a basic version of it, but this is called cross-modal correspondence, okay? So it's interaction and association of different sensory information. So it's actually, at the minute, it's one of the things that's making sure AI doesn't get above us. Because AI, they haven't analysed it enough to be able to work out how to put it into AI, which is holding AI back. But, this example of the pictures is a very basic example of kiki-bouba, okay? And you'll all do it. If I showed you those two pictures, you would call the one Kiki. Now, the assumption for that one is also when you say Kiki, it's stretching the corners of your mouth, which then gives a sharper, more edgy sound, and then Bouba gently brings it forward. That's one of the theories, but the more you get into this effect, the wilder it goes. As I said, it's not just these pictures. That's the basic one. Touch can be kiki-bouba. Sand is Kiki. Cotton is Bouba. Lemons taste Kiki. Cream is Bouba. American flute players with vibrato, Kiki. European flute players with Bouba. Okay? Now the research now is that everything in the world can be Kiki or Bouba, and there's generally a consensus on which one it is. Everyone picks the same answer for it, and most people, which just shows you how like deep and intricate the link in our brains is to different things. It's incredible. And apparently if we figured out these links and was able to work this out, we put this into AI and it would make it more human. So thank fuck we haven't. Don't listen to this podcast because we don't need it taken over. Although it won't. Fucking AI, it's shit. I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of it. But it's in music. So kiki-bouba appears in music. So I was reading about these things called Indian raga, like a raga. And this is where it's a really clear example of that. So a raga is kind of like it's like a framework for music, almost like a mode. If you think of modes, your Dorian and your Mixolydian modes. It's kind of like that. It's a melodic structure of music. And their different ragas are designed to very explicitly express certain colors or emotions or quite often times of day. So you'll hear a certain raga and everyone will go, that's the nighttime raga. Or everyone will go, that's the daytime raga. And different things. And they elicit these responses and suit the context. And everyone gets it. Everyone gets it. Now that's a more obvious answer within music, but cross-modal correspondence explains why certain classical music, where often you have to remember in classical music, we very generally, unless it's with a singer, don't have words. So when you don't have words, you can't be told exactly what the emotion's meant to be. We can't just go, this is the intention of this piece of music. But even still, classical music will still elicit the same response in an audience. And that's the kiki-bouba effect. That's cross-modal correspondence. Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, first movement, oh my god, gets a tear out of me every fucking time. And I know I'm not the only one, right? Like Peter knew what he was doing. Peter Tchaikovsky, he knows he's going to get us all crying. And that's the effect, the kiki-bouba effect. Which, lads, just how cool is that? I don't know if that was even useful to the podcast, but it's class, all right? So with all this stuff in place, this is why we like music, okay? And I've given you so many reasons why we like music. And did I mention scales at any fucking point? No. Did I mention playing fast at any point? No. I mentioned for pure aesthetic purposes, and I did say it's one and a small reason of it. So before we go on to other things, let's tie this together, because now that we've got all that in place, we have to analyze our role in this music process. Now when I say our role, I'm assuming you, dear listener, are a musician yourself, or you play. If you're not, great. You can even give us a better impact on this. But if you are a musician, or a flute player especially, this is your role, okay? So, as performers, we essentially occupy one of two spaces. It's live performance or recorded performance. That's it. That's our jobs. That's where we exist. Now, they both are, in many ways, very different, and we approach them very differently, but ultimately, it's the same thing, okay? It's the same role. And the role itself actually is something that's very unique to classical music. Because usually the role of a musician outside of classical music is to create music and then the audience consume that music. But we have a middle step as classical musicians. We have something in between that. The composer creates the music, however, it requires musicians to play it and to truly bring it to life. So neither the composer nor the performer can exist without the other. Nobody sits and reads a score for pleasure. Okay, they don't. Okay, you probably do it to study it, but nobody sits and reads a score to hear the sounds in their heads for fun. That's fucking weird. Okay, like you can do that with a play. You know, people say all the time, you can read a play, you can read Shakespeare plays. I used to read all of Oscar Wilde's plays. They're amazing. They read like novels. You can do that, no problems, and get a lot of enjoyment from it. But you need the physical effect of music, and it needs to exist in a specified time and place in the world to really get it, for music to truly exist. Music exists at a finite time and a finite place. Music is a thing and it goes. It's not like literature where it's there forever, or it's in a book. Music, Beethoven's 8th Symphony is not the score. Beethoven's 8th Symphony is when an orchestra is playing it. That's where the 8th Symphony is, and then it disappears and it no longer exists. It is a finite time. Now, the composer, I view ourselves as the linking point, first of all. I view us as the thing between the composer and the audience. So the composer does the hard bit, and our job is to get his, hers, or theirs idea to the audience. Now, I've talked about artistry versus technicality before in this podcast, and I still haven't quite worked out an answer on it. Anyone's been listening for a while would probably call me out in my hypocrisy here. But how much of our role as an artist is, as a performer, is artistic, and how much of it is purely technical? Because no matter what we think, they both play a significant role. Okay, you can't argue that one can exist without the other. They need to be together. You have to be an artist and a technician. But you think about it, if you have a performer who comes in and they have a purely technical performance, that means, they play the right notes, they play them in the right time, with the right dynamics, and the correct phrasing that they're told, all those things, but it lacks genuine empathetic emotion, it's shite. Okay, it's not worth it at all. It's shite. But likewise, if you take the most emotional, expressive, intelligent player and they can't play the fucking notes right, it's a waste of time. There's no point in listening to it. Okay, the one or two wrong notes is grand, but if they can't play the piece, it's shite. It doesn't work. It's a fine line to get it right, but you need both. Absolutely essential to have both. And in other music forms, generally the technique plays second fiddle. It's the least important of the two. If I think of bands, rock bands like the Libertines or the Sex Pistols, they can't play their instruments for shite. Meg White, the drummer from the White Stripes, fucking awful drummer, but the White Stripes are incredible. They're amazing. Shane MacGowan, one of the best singers I've ever heard in my life, couldn't hold a fucking note, but brings me to tears every time I hear him. One of the most emotional, beautiful souls. An artist, a poet. Shite singer. Hasn't got a tooth in his head either. Now, classical music is the exception to this. Maybe jazz as well. Okay, I don't know enough about jazz to really comment on that, but the industry and the culture around classical music very clearly values technique first. Technique comes above artistry, without a doubt, okay? I won't name them, but there are plenty of top flute players that have fuck all to say emotionally, fuck all to say, but they can play the flute half decently, so they're getting careers out of it. You won't see the opposite happening. It's more presentable. Wrong notes are so obviously wrong that, or bad technique is so much easier to hear, especially for someone who doesn't know the instrument, that you get away with it. While lack of emotion, your average person won't care. And then also, you see the audiences that go to classical music, a lot of them don't give a shit where the money comes from. They're there for image, so the image is good technique. Now, I don't want to beat this drum again, alright? I don't want to keep beating this big drum, but we do see this a little bit more strongly in American culture, and especially towards classical music. Now, like, for example, have you seen my episode with Stephen Clark, or I think even the episode with Merdad Kholami, we talked about it a little bit as well. They talk about the culture shock, because they're both immigrants and are now teaching in the US, and they can sort of see that cultural shift between students back home in Europe or in Iran compared to the USA, and it's very interesting. Go listen to those episodes. They're fascinating blokes, the pair of them. But the US is a strongly capitalist society, okay, and it puts a huge emphasis on competitiveness, which is maybe where all this comes from. If you're American, listen to this. Please remember, I know you guys are told when you're younger, you're the main characters of the world, but you're not. We don't care as much about it over here. Your culture is strange to us. We're really fed up with it. And the competitiveness and the hyper-capitalism is weird. So in America, there seems to be a real culture. If you want to win, you have to beat the other people to it. And if you lose, you're fucked. And you can be fucked in America. If you lose and you don't get what you want to achieve, you don't have the social security network to fall back on. You can lose your job and lose your house, and it's terrible. So it really breeds this hyper competitiveness in America, which you see all the time. Like, Americans love the success story and the self-made man and all that shite. And I think that's possibly where their obsession over technique in classical music emerges from. Because you see it online all the time too. Unfortunately, most online content, except this podcast, is US based or produced. Now, that's mainly because we've all accepted over the last 20 years that English is going to be the lingua franca of the internet, and you guys just have more people, and you're very good at media. So the US is where most of our Flute content comes from. Things like Flute Form or Etude of the Week, or even a lot of the content creators and all that shit. But if you look at all these people at the minute, you look at the American ones especially, the value of what they're doing is so often placed on speed, tempo. It's the big thing they all want to talk about. I see so many videos of Americans trying to get excerpts faster and faster and faster, etudes faster and faster and faster, beyond the written tempo. It's almost obsessive how far they go. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, we do this in Europe. Obviously we do. We're not perfect. But there is a general attitude in Europe of, well, what's the fucking point in playing it that fast if it's boring? What's the point? Now, I'm not blaming content creators here, because also the praise and the engagement on this type of content is massive. So they're playing to the market, and fair fucking play to them. And more Europeans are doing that now too, with the idea that this is kind of what we should be doing. If you want to get a following on the internet, this is what you have to do, and that's what gives big numbers online. And it's kind of warping a lot of Europeans' viewpoints on classical music, because they're being told something totally different by their professors in music college, and then the internet's telling them something else. And it gets some big numbers. Like the big example as well, 100 days of practice. That is a guaranteed way to get practice, to get followers. That is a guaranteed way to get followers. And it's ridiculous. I hate it. And do you know why I hate it? Because I keep wanting to do it, because it seems like such an easy way to get followers. Because I've done 100 days of practice, lads. I've done fucking hundreds of days of practice. Every 100 days, I finished my 100 days of practice. If I just recorded like 30 seconds of it every day and been bothered to fucking post it, I'd be grand. I'd be rich. I have such a following. But again, it's 100 days, and you have to get to the number, and you have to achieve it. And the goal of it is not to be better during the 100 days. It's just to do 61, 62, 63, 69, and get up to 100. That's all. That's the real goal of it. It's an obsession with numbers and ticking boxes. It's strange. So there's an overimportance on all this these days. So here's my kind of solution. Here's my solution to it all. And in fact, that's what you do actually. You come here, don't you? You come to the Inline G podcast for solutions. You come to them for solutions in all your life. All your life's problems. So I'm going to sort your life out. Don't worry. But before that, I've got something I want to say to you. The Inline G podcast is free. And it'll always be free. That is a guarantee. But if you wish to support the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs €5 a month, or whatever that costs in your currency. And with that, you're 100% genuinely keeping this podcast alive. You may notice we speak about things we shouldn't speak about in this podcast. We openly address mental health. We swear. We talk about the situation in Palestine. We talk about classism. I'm not afraid to call anybody out. Sponsors don't like that very much. Sponsors basically tell me to go fuck myself when it comes to podcasting for those reasons, and they haven't held back on it. We don't get sponsors on here. I don't want sponsors on this podcast. I want this to be funded by you, the listener. So here's the way it works. I make an episode every single week of this podcast, come rain or shine. It's a lot of work. Episodes like today, this research, I don't just pull this out of my hole. I have to go and research this heavily, write it all down, make a list. I love doing it. Like, I really love it. It's one of the great joys of my life, this podcast, and it's so much fun. But it's a lot of work. It's taking up a lot of my time. And the good thing is, now you can support me as an artist. And when people see that this podcast is self-funding and self-sufficient, it's such a massive fuck you to the industry to say you don't need sponsors. You don't need people telling you what you can and can't do. It's such a massive act of rebellion to say, no, we sponsor the podcast, we fund it, we get the content we want. We're not afraid of Gareth swearing or saying about these things. We know if we give him the money and help support him financially, he'll cover anything. He'll cover anything. And I've still got a massive piece of news about a massive lawsuit as well, which I can't wait to tell you about, but I don't know if I can yet. But that's why I can do it, because sponsors wouldn't let me talk about these things. They wouldn't let me. But with you guys, we can. So here's a crack, lads. If you sponsor the podcast, it's €5 a month. You jump onto Patreon, you donate it, right? If you don't want to do it anymore, jump out. There's no hassle. There's no like extra charges. You just jump in and out. I do it all the time with other podcasts. I'll do it for a month, and then the next month, I haven't got any money. So I jump out for a month. It's grand. You don't get any extra content, okay? You will get your little trading card at some point. You'll get like Christmas letters, and you'll get wee presents, and I'll always be nice to you. And I generally listen to my patrons for ideas before I listen to anybody else. I love them, and I'm very appreciative for them. But you don't get any extra episodes, because I'm a great believer that the Inline G podcast is free for everybody, every episode. So you all get the same podcast, right? But it's a system based on soundness and kindness. Now, one other thing, if you are signing up on over there, try not to do it on the app on your iPhone, because when you do it through Apple take a 20% cut off me. The bastards. So if you're doing it, go onto your laptop instead of the Patreon app, okay? Don't pay through Apple Pay, basically, if you can avoid it. But thank you very much, guys. So as I said, if you can afford it, hugely appreciate it. It really is keeping the podcast alive. And if you can't afford it, it's grand. Just keep listening for free. You know, if you're an artist, you probably can't afford to pay for it, and that's fine. I couldn't either. But if you can, support me as an artist, and you're also paying for the people who can't afford to. Thank you. Mwah. Now, the solution. God, I've got a dry throat on my boys and girls. Now, here's my solution, okay? Go and have a think about what you actually want to do with your flute playing. What are you trying to do? Really think about it, okay? Sit down and ask yourself the hard questions. Sit in the discomfort of that for a little while. Because, right, well, first of all, let's analyze that role you play. You're a vessel, okay? You transmit composer to audience. And it's a privilege being that vessel, to take the music of people that have passed away 200 years ago and still keep it alive and share some of the most incredible music in the world with other people. It's a privilege to do that. It's an honor to take something like Beethoven or Bach or Mozart or Ravel and pass it on to other people. As I said, this doesn't exist without... Music needs to exist in a time and place, and you're the person that does that. You play a great role. You're a cog in the machine. You're like Florian Wirtz in the midfield. You get all the praise, and rightly so. You're brilliant. But without the other 10 players in the team, you'd be doing fuck all. You'd be nothing. That's a football joke for my Americans, which I know you won't get. But you should know who Florian Wirtz is. Best footballer in the world right now. I'll tell you. Also, on that note, video watchers, I've got this new jersey. It's a 2002 Bayer Leverkusen jersey. It's gorgeous. It's fake, and I feel like it's very low cut. I feel like a slut. Am I slutty in this top? Well, here, if the shoe fits, huh? But I don't know. I'm giving I'm letting you say a bit too much of myself. I'm going to catch a cold with this down here. Anyway, yeah, you're part of the team, lads. You can be the most brilliant shine for the Americans. I don't know. Give me an American footballer. What do you call that fella? Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. You can be Travis Kelce, and without the other, how many people are there in an American football team? Without the other fucking 300 or whatever it is, stupid thing. Without them, you're nothing. All right, you might be the star, but you need the team around you. You're a cog in the machine, and you're an important cog, but you're just a cog. Okay, so never, ever, ever, ever at any point separate technique from musicality. Don't do it. That even means do not play your scales just going through it and thinking this is for my fingers. Don't do it, because all you're doing is teaching yourself how to play unmusically. Okay? Colin Fleming was one of my first teachers. Great player, and he used to drill it into me. Scales are the most beautiful things in the world, the most beautiful melodies in the world. And he used to say, apart from Danny Boy, which he's right. Now, I don't know if he meant it or not, but I think what he meant is you should treat it as that. And I drill this into my students. It's an honor to play music. No matter what you play, no matter what you touch, if it's 3 notes, give it the respect it deserves. You're playing music. Give it full attention and love and care. 3 notes can sound like they can sound incredible. I've heard people do things with 3 notes you wouldn't believe just by the way they play it. Do that with everything. Never separate it. Always think, what am I trying to say with this music? Where am I going to express with it? How is it making me feel? How can it make other people feel? Do something with it, but never just look at it as technique. It's never just technique. And if you do that, yeah, you're just going to train yourself to do it, so don't do it. I even remember once I had a lesson with Catherine. So my teacher in Paris was Catherine Canton, for people who don't know, who was principal for the Paris Opera. She only retired 2 years ago, but she was there for like 50 years. And I remember she had a class where we were all doing the Fantasy on der Freischutz, the Taffanel one. Isn't it Taffanel or Go Bear? No, it's Taffanel, isn't it? Anyway, the Freischutz Fantasy, I'm sure you all know it. And we were all doing it. I remember one of the wee students who was 19, and she just, bless her, she just moved from Asia, like the other side of the fucking planet. Didn't really pick up on the French yet. Very difficult language to learn when you're a native Asian language speaker. But just Catherine was saying to her, the next level is to go out and put emotion into this piece. And she was like, listen, go read Dostoevsky, go read Tolstoy, go read Hugo, go to Paris, go to this area, go see Notre Dame, go do this. You're in Paris, go and find all these things. And she just reeled it all off. And then the wee girl and all the other wee girls got out like notebooks and started writing all these things down. And she was like, stop. Don't write them down, because she was basically saying, these are the things that get me going emotionally. These are the things that I connect with in life and really make me feel like I'm alive. You need to find yours. It might not be these things, but you need to go and find them. So don't just take these things as a list. What she was saying is you have to go out and live. And that is true. You have to experience emotion to express it. Okay, so you need, lads, you need to go out there. You need to go out and get your heart broken. You need to go out and love someone. You need to go out and live life to its fullest. Okay? When you're not in the practice room, go and live. Okay, there's nothing sadder than seeing somebody spends their entire life in the practice room. And I know what a lot of yous are like, okay, you probably had your childhoods robbed. If you're really good at an instrument, you probably didn't have much of a childhood. It's sad, I know, because you were in practicing. Don't deny it to yourself as an adult. Go out and live, okay? I did it, I'm grand, okay? There's plenty of time to practice. The minute you're done with your practice, no matter where you are, go, okay? As I said earlier, the modern social media romanticizes this quiet introvert life, and it's too much. Okay, no. I know there's introverts out there, but even still, you're wasting it. In my opinion, you're wasting your fucking life, okay? Stick your candles and your duvet nights up your fucking hole, alright? You know you're getting old when you're in bed Saturday night by 10 with a cup of tea. It's not. You're fucking 28 years old. You're 28, okay? I'm 32, okay? I'm 32. You can't keep me in this flat. I'm like a dog. I'm all over the place. Honestly, you need to put a leash on me to keep me inside. I'm out there breaking hearts and sinking pints, exploring the city, meeting new people. I'm young, dumb, and I'm full of cum. I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry. But I am. And I'm in a major European city. I can sleep when I'm dead, alright? I don't need to sleep now. Now's the time for partying and living and doing things. You know, when I lived in Paris, for example, it used to drive me insane because my ex-girlfriend was from Paris. So we'd be sitting there on a Friday night after a long week and she'd be like, oh, let's just get a takeaway and watch a movie. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We are in Paris. We're in the centre of Paris right now, and we're 25 years old in the centre of Paris. People would give their right arm to be in our position right now. Let's go. Let's just walk along the Seine. Let's go to these amazing areas. Let's go and explore. We are young and in Paris. It's a sin to sit inside and do that. It's a waste. Now, that's Paris, it's an extreme example, but whoever you are right now, people would give their right arm to be you. They would love to be you. If you can play an instrument, they're so jealous of you that you can do that. And honestly, even more so, if you're healthy. If you're healthy and you can get out, people are so jealous of you. Don't waste it. Go out and live your life, okay? Before it's too fucking late. And then go out and bring it all back. Bring all those emotions back to the practice room. And practice your fucking scales and your etudes and your concertos with a big full cup of emotion, okay? Don't wait to put emotion in your music till later. Do it now. Put it in on every single step. You cannot not do it, okay? It's hard work, but your audiences and more importantly, your soul will thank you. You know, I don't know if you guys know Joshua Homme, the lead singer of Queens of the Stone Age. One of my favourite musicians. Queens of the Stone Age are one of my favourite bands. A cool as fuck dude. And he said two things which always stuck with me. I've got these printed out downstairs. They're that important to me. The first one he said was, I'm always looking for cool things to do because that's what we're supposed to do, you know? And his second quote, which is one of my favourites, is, not everyone deserves to be a musician. You get lucky enough to be one. So, go fill your boots, you gorgeous lot. Have a pint as well. Text someone you probably shouldn't be texting. grma G, slan lads, all the best. I'll see you next week. Mwah.
Get your man the Flute to play song, the fuck.
druids, powdered paraphernalia.